Hello everyone and welcome to NLTI. CLAT 2027 is just a few months away and I'm really sure that you have started preparing around the same. And if you have started preparation, first thing that you should definitely do is analyze the previous year question papers. And if you have already done it, there is a huge possibility that some of you might feel it a little challenging to navigate through the legal reasoning section. I have come across a lot of students who find it extremely difficult to understand what really is happening in the legal reasoning section, how they should be preparing around the same, and how to answer questions that are given in the passage, which are basically based on the passage. So that is something which we are going to be decoding today, which we'll try to understand how it has to be done. So let's just get started without any further delay. I'll try to keep it really crisp so that you get most value in less number of time. You do not have to waste a lot of time thinking and wondering what's happening. Okay, so I have been mentoring and teaching CLAT UG students for quite some time, and after the this year's exam that happened in December 2026, 2025, a lot of students, they came to me and they were like, "Ma'am, um, okay, just give me 1 second." All right. So one thing that I have observed, which I was telling, so sorry for the glitch, that a lot of students have actually shared that somehow legal reasoning was easy yet a little confusing to attempt. And that was the case because um, people, some questions were directly based on the passage, some questions were out of current affairs. So, in that case, what should be the correct way of navigating through the passages? What should be the correct way of answering questions? And what are the different type of problems? First, of course, students who do not come from a legal background, who have not studied legal studies in their class 11th and 12th, found it extremely difficult to, first of all, understand the entire passage. See, not everything was in legal language, but somehow there are some words, probably, some Latin maxims have been used, some foreign terms have been used, which the students do not understand. In that case, um, also the fact that most of the time the passages are really dense. There are 350 to 400 words that they have to read. In that case, our mind works more towards reading than understanding, and then they find it really difficult to navigate through the same. So yes, understanding the passage was one of the issues. Second problem was that they were not able to identify or find a difference between the options that were there. The options, they kind of look familiar, they look identical. So in that case, choosing the correct option was a little challenging for them. And since the options were looking quite identical, they somehow chose the incorrect option. And if you know CLAT, you will know that for every incorrect option, there is going to be negative marking as well, right? So not just they were confused by the options, but they also lost marks because the options were identical. And they ran out of time. They ran out of time because, like I already mentioned, the passages were dense, right? And there are 120 questions that you have to attempt in 120 minutes. So you have only 1 minute per question. In that case, you have to read, you have to understand, you have to analyze, you have to apply, identify different options also, and time, it runs out, right? So yes, these were some sort of challenges which a lot of students they faced. So what are you going to understand in today's session? So first of all, we'll understand how do you read the passages carefully, right? And then we'll learn how can you identify the different legal principles that are there. Thirdly, you have to solve the question step by step, and what all different common mistakes you can avoid. So the first thing that I want to share with you is that no matter how learned you are, no matter how much information you have, no matter how well you have prepared, how well acquainted and familiar you are with all the laws, keep external knowledge out. You do not have to bring it to the exam, right? So CLAT is going to give you a specific passage. In every passage, a specific legal principle will be discussed. So now you only have to keep your you only have to apply the principle that has been given to you in the passage. No matter how much law you have read, your external knowledge is not being tested. CLAT is not an exam of checking how well you memorize things, how much learned you are. It's much more about how well you can analyze and apply the principle. So reading is, of course, it is going to take time, right? And by reading, you have to identify the principle, and you only have to apply the principle that has been given there. No outside legal knowledge is required. And even if you are reading the passage and you are thinking that, okay, maybe this should be the answer, but the real life law, it says something else. So probably that should be the answer. You do not have to assume things, right? Stick to whatever has been given there in the passage. Only apply the legal principle that has been given in the passage and answer based on the same. So, like I mentioned, your answer should only be based on the passages and nothing else. So, first things first, how do you have to read the passage? See, the passages are going to be a little long, right? I'm not going to comfort you by saying that the passages are going to be, readable. What we have observed in the past few years, the average words are around 350 to 500 words for every passage. And when it comes to legal passages, especially, sometimes you will find that the terms that are being used are a little technical. There are legal jargons that are being used. In that case, if you're not familiar with those terms, you will spend more time in reading, and that entire passage will look really difficult to you. So, your job is not to understand everything that is there in the passage. Your job is, first of all, to identify the legal principle. Why? Because this is the entire core. This is the core of your entire passage. Based on this principle, all the questions will be there, right? So, identify which legal principle is this passage talking about. If it is about, any specific socio-legal issue, any new law that has been passed, any new judgment which Supreme Court has given, anything of that sort, you have to identify. Once you have identified that, okay, this is the principle, pay more attention in understanding what that principle is saying rather than wasting time in understanding what this sentence is saying, what is the meaning of this word. No, just try and understand what the principle is all about. And then identify if there are any facts given. Now, facts does not mean that facts of a case or something. If there is any specific scenario that has been discussed, not just in the passage but also in the questions, right? Understand different scenarios, different situations that have been discussed, and think how this principle will be applicable to the same. So, the right question that you have to ask yourself whenever you are reading a passage is that what is the rule, what is the law? And once you have identified that rule, that law, you have to underline it, or you can just flag it in your mind also that, okay, this is the principle, this is what I have to focus on. And based on that, you have to answer everything that is going to be there in your passage, because like I've mentioned in the beginning also, that is going to be the core of your entire passage. So do not waste a lot of time in understanding everything. See, when it comes to passages like English passages, right, in that case you have to be much more careful, because you have to identify, tonality of the passage, what is the intent of the author, so many other things. But when it comes to legal passages, something really important is that restrict your focus just to the legal principle. That's it. Nothing more is required. Once you've identified it, you know, um, just underline it, flag it mentally, and keep this thing in mind that till every question of this passage is answered, this is something which I only have to keep in mind, and this is something which I have to keep my focus on, and all the questions have to be answered based on that. Okay. After identification of the principle, understand the principle. Now, see, the principle that is given to you in the passage can be really different from its counterpart in real life. There is a possibility that, okay, maybe in the passage they've discussed about a law which does not exist in reality. For example, in the passage, they've said that marital rape is criminalized in India, right? But in reality, we do not have any such law. So, in that case, if your outer knowledge says that, okay, marital rape otherwise is not a crime, it should not be discussed this way in the passage, it doesn't matter. Just understand what that principle is saying. If it is saying that marital rape is criminalized and then it has given some situation, then in your mind, it should be very clear that it is a crime. And if a situation is there, the person will be punishable. Why? Because it is a crime, no matter what other things say. So understand the principle carefully, that what exactly it is conveying. If it is saying that maybe, um, so if it is saying that, okay, this specific thing is criminalized and punishment of 3 plus years or minimum 3 years will be given to the culprit, in that case, understand what exactly it is trying to say. And now, how will you even understand it? See, one thing about law is that laws are usually really crisp, and they are quite, they are crisp yet descriptive, right? You will get to understand everything that a law is trying to provide if you read it carefully. It's in law, less is more. So you will find less number of words when it is about a legal principle, but those less number of words will also be conveying everything to you. So read carefully, right? Spend your time not in reading the entire passage, but reading the principle a little more, right? Read it down and break down any sort of long sentences if you are finding, right? It is going to help you to understand it a little better. And if there are any conditional words, for example, unless, provided that, only, it is something really important because it changes the meaning of the entire law. Okay? It says that, okay, marital rape is crime in India unless it is being done in ABC situation. So now if unless word has been used, it is conditional. There is definitely going to be a question which is going to be about that condition. So in that condition, the law is not going to be applicable, right? So these conditional words are really, really important to identify. So now what usually happens that students, they spend a lot of time in reading things and they just read it just to save their time, they read it really quickly. But they do not understand things, and even if they are understanding the principle, they avoid such conditional words which changes the meaning of the entire principle, because like I've already said, you only have to restrict your application just to the principle that has been given to you in the passage. Nothing else really matters. So in that case, what is important, that just the passage only, just the principle only has to be given full attention, and the conditional words should not be ignored at any cost. I have seen students struggling so much and saying that, okay, this probably was the most correct answer, but it wasn't. Why? Because they miss the conditional words in the passage while reading it. So speed reading, yes, it is important, but speed reading with accuracy is something much more important, right? So read quickly, okay? If you have allocated time to a passage that, okay, I do not want to spend more than 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes in reading that passage, that's absolutely fine. But while reading, identify things that can change the meaning, right? That can be really important. Identify principles, identify things based on which questions can be asked, and keep on underlining it as and when you can, okay? Because that's going to be extremely useful otherwise, okay? And then important is applying the principles, okay? Apply the principles. It is the easiest thing to do if you have understood what has to be done, okay? Now you have read the law, you have identified it, you've read the law, you've understood it also. Now, CLAT is going to check how well you can apply it. It is going to give you a situation. A and B is a married couple, so and so and so, whatever it is, right? They're going to give you a situation. And now, whatever principle is there, you have to apply that principle. It's not very difficult, but still a lot of people, they sort of face a lot of challenges in applying it. Why? Because they understand things but they have not practiced it well. So reading is of course important, And understanding is also important, but make sure you're while your preparation you're also practicing legal reasoning questions. That's also going to be a game changer for you. That's going to help you in applying the principles properly. Okay, now there is going to be a possibility that you are attempting a question which has identical options, right? Which happens a lot. All of them, they kind of look the same. So in that case, you will think that, okay, I am doing the best that is possible, but it still is not the correct answer. So in that case, there is something called an elimination technique which you can use, right? If you are unsure about an answer, rather than spending a lot of time pondering upon what is going to be the correct answer, always think that which options are incorrect. If you've ever watched Kaun Banega Crorepati, you must have, I'm not sure if the lifeline is there anymore, but there used to be a lifeline called 50-50, right? Now the purpose behind that 50-50 lifeline was very simple, that there are going to be four options, and if you use that lifeline, two incorrect options will disappear, and then you will have two correct options in front of you. Same way, when it comes to these four options which look quite similar to you, right? Eliminate the probable two incorrect answers which you are pretty much sure, pretty much confident that definitely are incorrect. Remove those two incorrect options first of all. Once you have removed those two options, now your accuracy automatically, or the chances of you giving the correct answer will automatically increase from 25% to 50%. You will only have two options in front of you, and based on that, you just have to select the most possible correct answer. Now, how can you identify the two most probable incorrect answers? Okay, right. Okay. Okay, just taking a quick small pause. So sorry, a little technical issue. Let us just quickly resolve this, and let me see what is okay. All right. Yeah. So now, I'm so sorry. Now let us understand how do you have to select the incorrect options. First thing is that some questions, some options will look incorrect in the first glance, right? Maybe the law is not applicable, right? Or maybe they're just not making sense. The solution is against the common sense. In that case, just remove it first of all. Secondly, if you feel that there is anything, any extreme language that has been used, right? Now, see, if those options are containing any extreme words like always, never, every, or none, where you where you sort of understand that this is trying to make a claim. See, now your legal reasoning principles, they do not make a claim. They give you a law, right? They give you a rule, but they're not making a claim out there. If the options, they look too loud, which is, um, which is making a claim that, okay, this is going to happen. Legal reasoning principles usually are more balanced and more neutral, right? However, when it comes to such options which look very extreme, in that case, those are really, those can be a little, such questions where you can get a little confused. Okay. Now, Third is if there is any extra or outside information. Now, this happens a lot. This happens a lot. A lot of people, they, a lot of options are usually out of those real life laws. So now, again, students who use their mind and they stick to whatever is given in the passage, they'll find it much more easier to answer the question, right? And the accuracy will automatically be more. So what do you have to keep in mind? That you do not have to directly look for the correct answer. You first have to also identify the incorrect options that are there. And once you have identified those incorrect options, then you have to look for the answer that is actually the correct one, right? Now, once you have eliminated it, and trust me, this elimination technique, I have seen so many students applying it, and so many students actually, the technique has worked well for them. And it is extremely useful when you are unsure that what can work well for you, right? When you are not sure of the answer. So in that case, use this elimination technique. It can be a game changer, right? All right. So, okay, someone has a question. Options correct की तो बात अलग है, but समझ में नहीं आता कि passage में ये है questions, तब तो बाद में पूछेंगे हम लोग. Okay. Okay, very valid concern. Sometimes, see, nobody is saying that the questions are going to be directly from the passage. The passage is not going to give you facts. Passage is just going to give you the principle. Your job is not to find answer in the passage. Your job is to find the legal principle in the passage. And like I said, passage को पढ़ो सिर्फ उस लीगल प्रिंसिपल लॉ को समझने के लिए, लॉ ढूंढने के लिए, अच्छा कि ये आपके पास कानून है. वंस यू हैव आइडेंटिफाइड द लॉ, उस लॉ को सिचुएशन में लगाओ. ठीक है, आपका योर जॉब इज नॉट टू फाइंड द करेक्ट आंसर. पैसेज में आंसर्स 70% ऑफ द टाइम्स उसमें नहीं होगा. अगर आपके क्वेश्चंस एनालिटिकल हैं, तब पैसेज में क्वेश्चंस हो सकते हैं. अगर आपके क्वेश्चंस एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड हैं, तब वो आंसर्स पैसेज में कभी भी नहीं होंगे. ठीक है, ओके, चलिए, लेट मी सी, लेट मी सी. ऑल राइट, ठीक है folks, so this is something I had to share with you. I cannot see any further questions. So if there are no further questions, then we'll wrap the live for now. Thank you so much, everyone. And yes, have a great long weekend ahead. I hope all of you are going to have a lot of fun.